Oh, hey folks, it's super early in the morning. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. But I thought it'd be really fun to talk about my tank at work. This is a tank I set up for a coworker named Kevin about a year or so ago, and I've taken it over. He left to work somewhere else, and I've taken it over, and I thought I'd tell you about what's been going on with it. That's all coming up right after this. Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and it is pretty early in the morning. Just had my coffee. All my patches are going well. I've got a few minutes before things start happening again, so I thought I'd shoot a quick video. This was not the video I planned to do this week. I was going to do one on the 55, but I'm actually getting ready to go on vacation, and I haven't had time to do with that video what I wanted to do. When I set up that other tank, I actually ended up breaking down two different tanks, and had to do like some emergency maintenance, and a bunch of other stuff happened. So I want to do that video later, and I've decided that I want to talk about this tank. This is a tank I haven't really talked about much at all. I touched on it just for a second on the update that I did, my all aquarium update. And of course, if you want to watch the setup for this, that's an older video from last year. I'll put a link at the end of the video. Now, I guess the full history with this tank is I set it up for Kevin. We set it up here at work, and I don't know how regular water changes he was doing. I think he did maybe a couple, but he wasn't doing like weekly water changes, I don't think. He picked the fish that are in there, except for the little yellow inler. But he picked the cherry barbs and put in there, and they're pretty little fish. I've never kept them, but I've heard that they're kind of legendary at eating algae and stuff, so I was curious to see when he decided he didn't want the aquarium anymore. Instead of rehoming these, I decided to just keep them for a while and try to observe what they're like to keep. And it's not that I don't like these or anything. I just usually with barbs or fish like this, I think they're schooling fish, and they should really have more, but I don't want to put 6 of those things in here. I think it would just be way too crowded. The other thing is the water's kind of strange here. It's like the water's run through a water filter or something like that, so the water's incredibly soft. I've been doing some water tests, just like the cheap dip water test, which is easy to do at work. And the water seems to be really soft. I mean, I don't think it has much in it at all. To counter that, I've added a bag of crushed coral to the filter compartment in the back, and that's brought the numbers up. It didn't have like a really strong effect, but it had a very subtle effect of like bringing the hardness up just a little bit, to the point where it's like at least measurable. I haven't brought my master's test in or anything, but like on the dip test, if that's correct, and it probably isn't, but on the dip test it was looking like almost like a pH of maybe 6, maybe 5.7, something like that. It's really arbitrary and hard to tell, a little square color that's probably not accurate, What I'll most likely do soon is I'd really love to take a water sample from here and take it someplace and test it, like home or to my local aquarium shop, and get them to test it. Sometimes I'll have them test some of my water just to kind of see, like, make sure I'm on the right track too, kind of get a second opinion. This has some terrible algae issues, and I was wondering if part of that was that the plants couldn't grow, like maybe the softness of the water was making it hard for the plants to grow. But something else that I didn't consider at first is that the lights here never go off. In fact, they're on their dark setting right now. Like usually we come in and the lights will come on and you hit the button, and then you just get this emergency ambient amount of light, which is a lot of light. So basically this aquarium's running, and there's no sundown. It never gets dark. It's never it's always got some amount of ambient light, and I think it's caused an algae problem in there, to the point where I wonder if maybe I should make like a little shelf or something, and maybe put it under something so it gets a little bit more shade in the middle of the night. I wanted to try a number of things to mitigate like some of the problems, and all the problems are really just like really gross algae. It was like really looks bad. This tank's kind of hard to photograph because it reflects this table again, and these lights never go off, so it's really hard to get a nice clean shot of it. But at different points it hasn't looked very bad. Like, it's looked pretty good at different times. But so even after I started this tank, I mean, I threw some plants in there, some plants that do really good at home, and they just didn't grow. Kevin bought some more plants online and he added them in there, and they didn't seem to grow. When I was at the big fish deal, I came back with a bunch of plants and I added some here to kind of spruce it up a little bit, and they didn't grow. Things were really at a standstill, and the only thing that was growing was algae. And it was looking really gross. It was getting to a point where it's kind of an embarrassing thing, especially at work. People here know that I have a YouTube channel and I do videos about aquariums, and if the one I've got to show everybody here it looks like crap, it's a reflection on me. So after I added the crushed coral, the next thing I did to kind of mitigate the gross algae problem was to throw in frog bit. I've used frog bit to kind of help turn the tide, at least like super absorbing nutrients. Sometimes even with the water change and stuff, you don't quite get it, like your tank's still kind of overrun with nutrients, and the algae will just keep running, especially if there's no plants at all to take up anything. Frogbit doesn't seem to care if it ever gets dark. Frogbit doesn't care if the water's super soft, and it gets plenty of oxygen because it floats on the surface. Also, it provides a lot of shade for everybody in there. So what I did is I brought in like a big handful of fresh, good-looking frogbit. It eventually grew almost all the way over to the other side. I've recently pulled out some. That's why it's kind of bright in there. It got really dark in there, but it seemed to have sort of a positive effect. But there's still kind of stuff all over the walls and everything. Sometime last year, a bunch of my viewers encouraged me to try neurite snails. I don't know. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They're a really beautiful snail that doesn't reproduce in fresh water. I think they reproduce in brackish water. So you can add them without having to worry about big egg sacs or having tons of them. They do lay little eggs all around, and you can see it. You can see it kind of in the corners here and there. I haven't found that to be like. It's definitely an okay trade for algae, and especially when you consider, like, I've added them to a bunch of tanks before, and I've seen them running around doing stuff, but I couldn't really tell. When I added 2 to this one, you could see a markable difference. Now, I'm not sure if they're just like scraping off the walls, if they're maybe going under the algae and it's just falling away and I'm not noticing, or they're actually eating it, but they have cleared everything. They've cleared all the walls of algae. It took several weeks, and I would film a little bit each week as they progressed. They went to town on the algae in this tank, and after they finished with the walls, they started going to the leaves that were having problems, and they basically are cleaning the leaves off. They're not eating them, they're cleaning them off, and they look better. So all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of green in here. Things are really starting to look healthier. I think the plants are starting to grow. I'm seeing just like little hints and signs of growth. The nice rich green color is a good indication too that they at least feel okay. Plants take a long time to react to their environment. Nothing happens instantaneously, so I guess it'll be a while before we know for sure if the plants have started to grow again. Yeah, so while I got the snails, I also saw a really cool Endler, and I haven't bought an Endler live bearer in a long time, but this one was really neat. And I really like the little yellow color in there, add a little different color inside the tank. This is by no means my favorite tank at all, but it's been a fun little kind of experiment in like fighting algae. Every now and then, if you have a problem tank, you actually learn a lot more from that tank than you do one that doesn't have any problems. Might not be great to show to thousands of people on the internet, but it's definitely good for knowledge. I have to note too that as good as those snails are, I added one to my face tank. That's one of the tanks that I had to take down. Well, I didn't break it down completely, but I had to do a major revamp on it because that snail crawled into the back of the tank and died. Over the next couple of days, I was overrun with hair algae and had this terrible hair algae problem, and I had to go dig him out. So there is a downside to big snails like that, especially if they're going to crawl off and die. I think that's where I'm going to end it today, folks. Just kind of a short one. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't know if there'll be a video next week. Or if I do a video, it might be a live stream or something like that. So back on the regular schedule in a couple of weeks, and I hope to see you then. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Algae issues. Well, and of course, if you want to watch what the... Hey, good morning, folks. In today's video, we're going to take a look at my aquarium at work. I'm here really early in the morning. It's about 5 o'clock.